Good day. I'm Coach DuWayne Campbell, track and field coach, as well as strength and conditioning coach, and welcome to another podcast episode for the Coaching Excellence podcast. Today, I will be interviewing Coach Jay Turner. He's a sprints and hurdles coach at Montana State University. I got that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. I've known Coach Jay Turner for quite some years now. We did some continuing education courses together, and I've always admired his dedication to his craft, his dedication to the training group that he's had at Montana State University, and his ability to get athletes to perform well exactly on time. Coach Jay Turner, thanks for being on the podcast with me. And could you give us a little bit of information about yourself in terms of how you got into coaching and what your primary motivations are for coaching?
Yeah, so how I got into coaching, I was obviously an athlete in my collegiate, high school and collegiate days, and it's funny story to me. I never wanted to be a coach when I was younger. I honestly just took a coaching job at a local high school because I was poor. And I was needing money, and there was a local high school that was looking for a part-time sprints and hurdles coach. And at the time, being 22, 23 years old, I figured, how hard can it be? I was an athlete for a number of years. I'll give them the same stuff I got and no sweat. I quickly found out that wasn't the case, and you actually need to know what you're doing. But that first year that I was there, I realized I loved what I was doing. And I quickly transitioned from, in my mindset, from athlete to then coach in the way that I thought. For example, I wasn't always the most punctual person when I was younger. And then when I started coaching, I quickly realized that if I was not there, if I called in sick, if I had an appointment that I was running late from and had to be at training after that, if I wasn't there, I couldn't call in and my coworker takes over for me. There's no training that day. And when I realized that gave me this great sense of responsibility that I loved. And it made me want to coach and want to be there for the youth athletes, right? And so that's where my coaching journey started. And I coached at the high school level for 11 years. And then I moved up to the collegiate level where I was a volunteer coach at the University of Akron for 3 years. And then I took over here at Montana State in fall of 2018. Where I've been ever since. So this is year 5 for me here.
Awesome. And primary motivation, what gets you, motivated and ready to go there and do this coaching thing that is full of so many pitfalls and, for a lot of people, it's not a very well-paying job, and you have to deal with kids from all these different backgrounds. What gets you up and ready to go?
Yeah, well, the first thing is the one thing that I have not shut off or transitioned from, however you want to look at it, as far as from athlete to coaches, is my competitive nature. So competition is one of those things. Just knowing that no matter how good I think I am as a coach, or how good I think my athletes is, or how good this team is, there's always another athlete to chase. There's always another coach to chase. You can always get better, just like as an athlete. So that's one of my motivations. And also doing right by my athletes. I think every athlete that I've ever coached over the past 20 years, will tell you, I might coach them hard. There might be days where I may not be their best friend in the world that day, but I always have their best interest in mind. And so things like that motivate me, just to make sure that I'm putting my athletes in the best position to succeed, whether it's as an athlete or even just as a young man or young woman.
Awesome. It's funny that you touched on that point, because our current head coach, he has this saying: and he'll bring all the athletes together and say, I love all of you. I don't always like you, but I love all of you. You know, and I have to coach you hard, you know.
Yes.
Easy.
And
Right?
and you know what? The great athletes, they get it, right?
Yeah.
They get it because successful athletes or athletes that want to be successful, they want to be coached.
Yeah. For sure. All right. So we touched on your motivation as a coach and how you get yourself ready, or what drives you to do this thing. But how do you keep your athletes motivated? Because yes, the great ones have this intrinsic drive, you know, they have this competitive drive and the need to perfect their craft. But the great ones maybe about 5% at most. The rest of the athletes in the squad probably don't look very far down the line. How do you get those kids and keep them? How do you get those kids motivated, and how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, so that's a multiple part question that has a multiple answers to it. So on one hand, as I said, I coach my athletes hard, but at the same time, I got to keep it light, right? At practice every day. So when we're training, yes, they have these, like you said, these intrinsic motivations and these aspirations on what they want to be. But at the end of the day, at least in my case, I'm not coaching a group of professionals, right? I'm coaching athletes who are between 18 and 23, 24 years old. Okay, so they are, to me, still kids, right? And they want to have fun, right? So while we're working hard every day in practice, it isn't all seriousness all the time, from the time that they step onto the track to the time that they go home, right? We're keeping it light. I'm making jokes. I'm laughing at their jokes and that type of thing. And believe it or not, by keeping the morale high, that also keeps the motivation high, because so many times, especially with young athletes, you know, if they're not having fun, then that motivation goes down. They're like, well, what am I doing it for? I'm coming to work every day and I'm punching the clock. I'm clocking in and I'm clocking out. It's no fun. So why do I want to do this, right? And we as coaches might always think, well, what do you mean? You want to be successful where you've got to work hard and you've got to be here and show up every day and all that stuff. And that's fine. But that fun aspect has to be there too. So keeping it light is part of what helps keep them motivated. Also showing them that I care about them, right? And they're not just a number. They're not just another athlete that, you know, that I don't care about or anything like that. I care about the person, right? And that keeps them motivated, because kind of going along with the first point, if they don't feel that the coach is there for them and fully supporting them in everything that they're doing, then where's the motivation to work hard for this coach? Yeah. Sure, I want to work hard for myself because I want to be successful as an athlete, but I also want to show my coach that the faith that he's putting in me and the confidence that he's putting in me is not unfounded, right? And so I want to work hard for him, but if he doesn't care about me, then where's the motivation in that, right? So that's another thing. And then obviously, you know, motivations such as, you know, obviously just being successful and those types of things. But I think it starts with, again, the relationship that you have and that you develop with your athletes.
Awesome. And it's funny that you said that, because I think it was your first point in terms of the athletes keeping it light and keeping it fun. I keep going back to this study that was done a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly to cite it, but I remember they said that of all the top 10 reasons that athletes show up to training, like even the good ones, even the great ones, the top 10 reasons don't include winning. A lot of it has to do with being around their peers, having the gear, especially high school athletes. They want to have the gear for that particular team. They want the self-esteem boost. And very high up there was just to have fun with their friends.
Yeah.
And that's a really big motivator. I think it was probably the second or third highest ranked reason among
Yeah. And one of the things that I tell my athletes and I tell when I'm recruiting and I tell people that I'm trying to get to come to the university is if you walk past our track and you had no idea what was going on and you just walk past, I always make the joke of, if you might think, do they ever get anything done? I always see them laughing and joking all the time, right? But what you don't know, what most people from the outside don't know, and what you probably only realize if you're within our circle, is they know when to turn that off and get to work, right? So when we get here and you know during the warm up and obviously they're doing their drills correctly and all those things, but that's when you're keeping it light, right? And somebody's making a joke about somebody and the boys are clowning each other and that kind of thing, right? And the girls are laughing at them and that kind of thing. And when we're doing some type of speed work and you got 10, 12 minutes rest, right? And instead of just standing around, they're kind of again keeping it light. And then when it's time to lock back in, get that rep in, boom, they're locked in, everything's serious, right? And so they know how to turn it on and off. And I think that comes from the type of athletes that I look for, which I know we'll get to later. But I think that's just, again, very important to have that fun aspect in there.
Yeah, and I remember there's this one kid. I didn't coach him. I did not coach him, but this kid struck me as someone who I was sure would be very difficult to beat in competition, because this kid was having fun the whole entire time. So I've sent athletes out there and they would get flustered and I always looked at this kid and this kid was just over there in the corner just. He's enjoying the competition the whole entire time. And he wasn't my athlete, he was a kid from a rival school, but every time I saw him out there, I just felt good for him and I felt good for his coach, because they understood that you have to enjoy this. It's a journey, and if you're not enjoying it, it doesn't seem worthwhile.
Look at people like Noah Lyles or Shelly Ann, people who are just absolutely enjoying themselves out there, right? And it's not, and there's others too, but those two stick out to me, right? People who just are, it's just a joy to be out there doing what you love, right? It's not all seriousness all the time. And also, I believe that if you're serious all the time, that gets you tight and wound up, right? And we tell these athletes, we want them to run faster than they've ever run before. And especially in the speed and power events, the way that you do that is to relax.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in there with them.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit in terms of your views on continuing coaching education, in terms of what contribution it makes to what contribution it supplies in terms of making you a better coach.
I think it's everything. It's the same thing as an athlete. If as an athlete, if you're you have to have some specific and sophisticated type of training at some point, right? You can't just be out here just doing stuff, right? You can't just, as an athlete, go up to the track with no coach and I think I'm going to do a couple sprints, or I'm going to jog a couple laps, right? Well, what's the end game? What are your goals? What do how are you making a plan on going about those things? And coaching is the same thing, right? You can't just be out here just giving athletes workouts, just some random workout that you saw on the internet that you think is really fun. There has to be reasons. What are you trying to build to? What type of athlete do you have? What type of building what type of body build do they have? All these different types of things. So being able to piece together all this information that's out there, put it into one little box, right? To be able to file that away, I think it's super important. Learning energy systems and how those work, and just the overall hows and whys and whats. I think that makes coaching education super important.
Awesome. And how have you been able to chart your coaching education journey so far?
Yeah, so again, I just started out with a level 1 school, which was important to me, and then but that was just the USA Track and Field level 1 school is just kind of a weekend kind of course that you take, very in general. So I needed more than that, so I went on to the USATF level 2 school. It's a week-long course, a lot more sophisticated, a lot more in-depth and detailed. And really got to learn about what I do as a sprints and hurdles coach, the whys of what you do as a sprints and hurdles coach. But I wanted to keep going. And so a couple of years after that, I went on and got my USATF level 3 World Athletics certificate, which was another week-long course with other like-minded individuals who had a thirst for knowledge. And again, it was one of the most refreshing experiences that I've ever had as a coach. Just being around other people like that, knowing that there are other people out there like that really want to learn and really want to get better. And it was humbling in a way, because both the level 2 and the level 3 schools showed me that not that I ever thought that I was like, this great coach or the best coach out there or anything like that, but it showed me that whatever I thought I knew, I didn't, and I needed to get better, right? Which is good, and that kept my thirst high to continue to learn, and obviously just going to conventions and clinics whenever I can. I think all those things are very important too.
Awesome. You mentioned going to the level 1, level 2, and level 3 courses. What about coaches, other coaches that may have influenced you along the way? Has there been any coaches that influenced you significantly in terms of your coaching journey, especially where it's concerned with continuing education?
Yes, and many different ways. And I think over my years of coaching, I've picked up little things from a lot of different people, right? Coaches that I've worked with, or just coaches that I've saw social media posts about, or maybe even just kind of through email and kind of going back and forth with them about it. Obviously, coaches like Bush Nader is one. Dan Pfaff is another one who I've picked up things from. Mike Young, who is a coach here in the States, is another one I've picked up from. One of the coaches at Mississippi State right now, Carjay Lyles, is someone who I've picked up things from, and many other coaches that I have been around, and just kind of whether I know them personally or not, just picked up little things here that I've kind of observed them doing. When I'm at competitions, I've walked up to coaches and just introduced myself and say, hey, I like what you're doing with the athlete. What are some things that you've done? And some of those things I'll hear them and say, oh yeah, I do that too. But there might be one little nugget that I hear them and I say, you know what? Never thought of it like that, right? And then kind of incorporated that into what I'm doing with mine, and just little things like that have helped make me better. And many other coaches. Yeah,
I like that you are humble enough to approach coaches, other maybe more experienced coaches, and just introduce yourself. I find sometimes us as coaches, and let me include myself, the ego drive, the drive to compete, and the drive to believe in ourselves, that we are the best, or we're going to be the best, whatever the best means. That kind of holds us back a little bit from reaching out and networking with other coaches to really communicate and see what we can offer each other, knowledge-wise, competency-wise, skill-wise, and those little nuggets are key. For example, we have a new head coach, and what I've learned from him in terms of coaching the hurdles, I don't believe there are many other coaches that coach the hurdle that way. And he's had relatively good success doing it, and consistently at that, right? That's Coach Bennett. With Kerrika Hill, World Junior.
Yes, yes, yes.
His approach is quite different. It's different than what we were taught. And it's quite novel compared to other coaches that I've approached to say, hey, listen, what do you do with your hurdlers? And I will do it myself. I've luckily been able to network with a lot of coaches, both within my region and outside of my region. And I'm okay with telling everybody everything I know, because there's no way I can coach 1 million athletes. I can't even coach 100 athletes by myself.
Yes.
And I'm only coaching at one institution, but the knowledge that I have as a coach might benefit, a kid over there in, the rural part of Jamaica that might just be the next best thing. And me keeping it to myself does not help that kid, and it doesn't help me.
And let me tell you this. I wasn't always like this. This is something that really just kind of came over the past few years, because I was exactly what you're describing. I was that coach that I guess I had that American football mentality or basketball mentality of, I'm trying to beat you. So I don't have time to be, socializing with you. And that was, and that was me still in my transitioning from athlete to coach, right? And then and it took me a long time. That was one of the last transitions I had to make from athlete to coach. But I realized that, sure, that might be the case, but we as coaches, we're working together as well, right? Because remember, the motivation, it's about the athlete, trying to help the athlete to get better. And so then once I did that, and I was a terrible networker, I had that attitude of, I don't know if maybe I'm not going to talk to that person. And it went from, I'm trying to beat you, I'm not going to do it, to, I'd like to, but I don't, what am I going to say? How are they going to receive me? That kind of thing. And it took me going to seminars and to conventions and clinics and seeing that we're all one big community of coaches that want to help each other, right? Whether you're older, younger, more experienced, less experienced, it doesn't matter. Once I figured that out, it was off and running for me. And I quickly flipped that switch and just became someone that would go approach somebody. How you doing? And, my name is this, and it might be an awkward conversation in the beginning, but you've got to get that out of the way. And then you see other coaches that, and other coaches see you, that you might respect what they're doing and they might respect what you're doing. And so they've been paying attention to you as well, right? And so that sometimes makes that icebreaker a little easier to do. And so so just recently I've been I'm a huge proponent now of networking, and I understand its worth.
Yeah, super important to build out your coaching network. It's part of the reason that I started this podcast, is to have coaches open up, maybe have through this one-on-one conversation that I'm having with you, that there's another coach that will listen and go, oh, okay, well, that definitely helps. And let me go try that in training today and see if that will help that one kid that's not responding, or let me see if that can help me to level up, bring these kids up to another level. Because at the end of the day, what's really important is to get our athletes to improve.
Yes.
And even if I have to compete with you, my athletes have to compete with your athletes. That's not me competing with you. That's my athletes going out there and putting on a performance on this day, and your athletes going out and putting out their best, and the chips just fall where they may. Of course, I want my athletes to win, because I've been on that personal journey with them. But it is not a personal thing of myself as a coach against you. There's no way that that is the way to move forward as coaches. And especially so far we've had like swim coaches and track coaches, but we're going to get in a lot of basketball coaches, cricket coaches, soccer coaches, football coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, because there's always something to learn from our fellow coaching professionals. And even if that guy might be coaching lacrosse or cricket or netball or some other sport that maybe we will never coach, there's something in his approach that we can take and help to develop our athletes and get them to continue to improve. So I'm really glad that you touched on that point. I'm really happy that you brought that up. We know that you are the Bullet Club coach. Bullet Club. Hey, let me tell you, Jay, when I heard that name, I was like, I could be envious. I was like, damn, why didn't I come up with that name? Why? You know, you beat me to the punch, but yeah, I'm happy that it's out there. Maybe here on the islands where I am in Jamaica, maybe having a track club called the Bullet Club might not go down so well with the film. We have a whole different social.
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
It might be a little bit too much, you know. The Bullet Club. Yeah, but yeah, it's an awesome name, and I've seen the concept in terms of you working on speed with these kids. I'm an assistant coach, sprints as well, sprints and hurdles, and combined events, and speed and power is super important to all those events. So I've always watched him when he posts his stuff with the kids, and I'm like I can't do that now with my kids because I have to go off the head coach's program. But yeah, that's it's been very motivational for me. Appreciate that. How you engage with your athletes at Montana State. But tell me a little bit now in terms of, you know, recruiting is a major part, I'm sure, of the job that you do there at Montana State. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking for when you're recruiting athletes to be a part of your program. From the physical side, sure, but even so from the psychological or mental game, what exactly are you looking for?
Yeah, and I'm glad you worded it like that, because for me, the psychological makeup of an athlete is most important. And I say it's more important than the physical because I'm recruiting obviously under the assumption that anyone I bring in is going to be talented, right? They're gonna run quick times, obviously, right? So I don't have to say, well, they've got to be fast. Well, of course they do, right? They've got to jump high and far. Of course they do. But it's the mental makeup of the athlete for me. The first thing is you have to have a winning mindset. What does that mean? That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But one of the things that it means to me is how you approach this. So do you approach this always thinking about the end result, the times that you're running, and I have to run this time, I have to put this performance down? Or are you thinking about the journey, how to get there, right? What it takes to get there? Are you willing to make the sacrifices that are needed to get to this destination, not just the destination? Are you positive in your mindset? Are you, as I put it, are you glass half full or glass half empty in the way that you think about things? If you have a not so great performance, do you just go down in the dumps and you just start, you talk yourself into this hole? Or do you think about, well, what can I do better next time? How can I be better in this race? What can I do? Those types of things. So winning mindset is one. I know I've heard other coaches and other athletes talk about, you got to be tough. You got to have mental toughness. I don't like the term mental toughness. I heard someone use this a while back, and I love it. I prefer to use the term mental adaptability. And what I mean by that is, again, we're all gonna have tribulations, right? Whether it's in our life or on the track. But how do you adapt to that, right? And it goes back to the first point I just made. Do you just say, okay, well, I give up. This is too hard. I'm just going to give up. I can't do it. Or are you going to say, look, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get to work. I'm going to stop complaining, and I'm going to make this work. One thing I've been telling my athletes a lot is that winners just know how to win, right? They just know how to make it work. And you see that in all walks of life. Just some people, they just, everything they touch turns to gold. There always seems to, it's not perfect, but they always seem to figure it out. Those are winners, right? The ones who are always, something's always wrong. Something's always hurting, or I always have this negative thing. Those are not the winners. That's not a winning mindset. The ones who are like, well, sure, I got problems like anybody else, but I'm gonna flip this and make this work for me. Those are the types of athletes that I look for before I even get to the track side of it. And then again, the relationship part of it. When I'm recruiting, it's really, really, really important to me, the relationships that I'm building, and I'm paying attention to what you're saying. I'm paying attention to the conversations we have. Can you speak to me? Now, I get it. You're a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, and you're talking to this adult, and it may be a little awkward for you, and I understand that, but can you at least have a conversation, right? I'm listening to what you say, how you say it, what your motivations are. And overall, just, are you a good person, right? Everyone isn't perfect, but I also don't want a knucklehead either. You know what I mean? So, because when it's time to work, and when it's time to focus and get serious, I want someone who is going to, who has the mindset of it's time to focus and get to work, if that makes any sense. So all those things, as far as a personality and a mental makeup and an emotional makeup, are very, very important to me in recruiting.
Awesome. Well, any athlete that will hear or be able to consume this interview would be very happy to know that you're looking for the athlete's well-being and their emotional state, and looking to develop those things if they are to come to Montana State and be a part of your program as well. And I'm very happy that we got the time, that you were able to find some time to spend with us to talk about these issues. How do any of our viewers or listeners get to contact you? Like, how do they reach out to you if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, please. I think the easiest way, is, especially for the athletes in the islands, is just email me. Shoot me a quick email, and it's at jturner, JAYTURNER, at msubobcats.com. Anybody who's interested, anybody who has questions, please shoot me an email. If it's coaches that have any questions, shoot me an email. We could talk. Any athletes who might be interested in coming to the States, and Montana State University is an option for them. Please hit me up, and we can talk, times that it takes and performances that it takes and those types of things. I'd love to hear from anybody.
All right, awesome. And as always, I'm the easiest person to find. It's kingleo.876 everywhere that matters, actually. On social media, it's always the same, kingleo.876.
And you know what? And I better plug that too. For those of you who are on social media, you please hit me up on Instagram. That's probably the one I'm on the most. At Hey, it's Coach J. Just hit me up, and you can even just kind of keep up with the goings on at Montana State and what we're doing with track and field. So please hit me up on social media or email, either one, whatever's easiest for you.
Awesome. All right, Coach, thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of the interview, and we'll talk again in the future.
Appreciate it, Coach. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.